Hello students, today we're going to look at writing linear equations. Now we've been graphing linear equations from the formula y equals mx plus b, and we've been graphing it when we find the intercepts, the y-intercept and the x-intercept. But today we're going to kind of reverse that process, and we're going to be writing the equation given a table, given a graph, or given a word problem. Okay? So let's look at table. We know we need to have the equation in y equals mx plus b form. So we're really looking for the slope and the y-intercept before we can write the equation. So we got to find the slope and the y-intercept. Okay? So we're going to start with the table. Got my table here. If you'll take a second to copy your table down. My x's and my y's. And the first thing we need to do is find the slope. Now you remember finding the slope from a table. Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or I can just pick two numbers. How did I get from 6 to 3? I subtracted 3. And how did I get from negative 5 to negative 2? In this case, I actually added 3. So my slope, m, equals negative 3 over positive 3, which equals negative 1. So my slope is negative 1. Now I look in the table and see, is my y-intercept there? So let's think back just a second. How would I know if my y-intercept was in the table? In the y-intercept, the x value is 0. So if I have an x is 0, then that means my y-intercept is in the table. Do I have an x is 0? Dang it, no I don't. So now I've got to figure out, how do I find the y-intercept? Well, I have an x, I have a y, and I know the slope is negative 1. So now I can plug all of those into the equation and find b. So I'm going to pick one of these points. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to pick 1, 0 because I like dealing with zeros. I'm going to pick 1, 0. So 1 is my x and 0 is my y. So I'm going to write the equation y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to fill in what I know. Well, I know the y is going to be 0. I know the m is going to be negative 1 because I just found the m is negative 1. And I know the x is going to be positive 1 plus b. Okay? I just plugged in y, m, and that's not supposed to be x. That's supposed to be a 1 because the x is positive 1. So 0 equals negative 1 plus b. I'm going to add 1 to both sides to get b by itself. B equals 1. Now if I chose any other point, I would still get b equals 1. So now I know my slope is negative 1. My y-intercept is positive 1. So the equation for my line is y equals negative 1x plus 1. Or, because of the Math Council 1508, y equals negative x plus 1. That would be my final answer. So again, find my slope just by finding a slope in the table. The second thing is find b, the y-intercept. If I see an x equals 0, then I know whatever the y value is would be my y-intercept. If not, I plug in the y, the m, and the x to an equation, and then find b. That's how I solve, or excuse me, that's how I find m and b to write my y equals mx plus b equation. So the next part of this video is we're going to find the equation of a line that's already on a graph. And so again, I'm looking for the slope, and I'm looking for the y-intercept, and once I have the slope and the y-intercept, then I'll be able to graph the line. Well, I know the y-intercept because it's where the line crosses the y-axis, and it's probably a little bit hard for you to see, but the y-intercept is positive 2. So I know that b equals 2. Okay? I'm not expecting you to draw this in there because there's lots of little lines and all that kind of stuff. If you'll just follow the process, if you just want to draw an x and x, that's fine. If you just follow the process, I think you'll have this down. Okay? The next thing I need to do is find the slope. Well, I'm going to look at that line. I know just by looking at that line it's a negative slope because it's falling from left to right. So my slope is going to be negative. I'm going to go ahead and put that negative just in case I forget something later. Okay? Now, to find the slope, I'm going to do rise over run. Well, I have 3 points here, so I'm just going to pick this point on the y-axis and this point over here on the left. So I need to know, how many do I go up? I go up 1, 2, 3, and I go to the left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So that's negative 3 over 6. simplified, negative 1/2. So now I know my slope and my y-intercept, so I can write my equation. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Y-intercept is positive 2. Slope is go up 1 to the left 2, up 1 to the left 2, up 1 to the left 2, and there's the other point on the line. Now, if I want to go down here, I could go down 1 to the right 2, down 1 to the right 2, down 1 to the right 2, and I eventually get there. So, finding the slope and the y-intercept from a graph allows me to write the equation of the line. The next part of writing an equation of a line is if we're given a word problem and we have to come up with the equation based on the word problem. Okay? So here, a new app out there called Movies on My Phone charges an enrollment fee of $38 per year plus $2.99 for every movie you download to your phone. So how could I write an equation that gives me the total cost for downloading any number of movies on my phone? Okay? So there's a couple things we're looking for. Again, we're looking for m, which is the slope, and b, which is the y-intercept. Okay? There are a couple of hints that I want you to know. Okay? M is the slope is always going to be the unit rate, or something else that we might call that is the constant rate of change. Okay? The slope is the unit rate or the constant rate of change. Okay? What changes in the cost of the downloads? The change is $2.99 every time I want to download a movie. So I know that in this case, my slope is going to be $2.99 because that's what changes. Okay? B, which is the y-intercept, is always going to be the starting point. So in this problem, I'm looking, where am I starting? Well, if I join the Movies on My Phone club or app, the starting point is the $38 fee that I have to pay. Okay? Typically, the y-intercept is going to be a one-time fee or a one-time something that happens. So in this case, the starting point or the y-intercept, my one-time fee, is $38. Okay? So again, it's important that you know these two things, what the slope and what the y-intercept represent in a problem. The slope is the unit rate. We also call it the constant rate of change. It's going to change $2.99 every time I download a new movie. The y-intercept, again, is the starting point. Where do I start? You don't start at 0 in this case, because if you don't start at 0, you never join the club. You start at 38 because in order to join the Movies on My Phone club, I have to pay that $38 startup fee. That is the starting point. That's my y-intercept. So then what's my equation? If I know that the y-intercept is 38 and the slope is 2.99, then my equation is going to be y equals 2.99x plus 38. $38 is my starting point, and $2.99 is what my rate of change is, or the unit rate for each movie that I download on my phone. So the equation is y equals 2.99x plus 38. So I know you've missed wise words of wisdom from Mr. Cohen, so here's my next episode of wise words of wisdom from Mr. Cohen's. Here are the wise words of wisdom from Mr. Cohen's. If you didn't get it the first time, rewatch the video. So, I hope that helps. Bye.